Imagine this: you've been carrying a weight, a heavy, invisible burden strapped to your back for months, maybe even years. It's the weight of someone else's uncertainty. It's the anchor of their ambivalence. Every text you sent that took days to get a one-word reply, that weight got heavier. Every time you made a plan only to have it canceled at the last minute with a flimsy excuse, that anchor dug deeper. Every time you poured out your heart and were met with a wall of silence, you felt the chains tighten. You've been running a marathon with this person, but you're the only one running. You're sprinting, gasping for air, pouring every ounce of your energy, your love, your hope into closing a gap that they are constantly creating. And today, right now, in this very moment, I want you to visualize something so profound, so earth-shatteringly powerful, that it will change the entire trajectory of your life. I want you to visualize yourself stopping. You just stop. You unstrap that weight. You drop that anchor. You break those chains. You stand up straight, take a deep, full breath, maybe the first real one you've taken in a long time, and you turn around and you start walking away, not in anger, not in spite, but in peace, in power, in a profound and unshakable respect for your own soul, and you leave them standing there. Now feel the silence. Watch their face. What happens in that vacuum? What happens in that deafening quiet when the chase is finally over? This isn't about games. This is about gravity. And what you're about to discover is the cosmic shift that occurs when you reclaim your energy and force them to face the one thing they've been running from their entire lives themselves. For the avoidant person, your constant chasing, your pleading, your hopeful texts, your attempts to fix things as painful as they were, for you served a critical, unconscious purpose for them. It was background noise. It was the proof that they were wanted, that they were loved, that they had a safe harbor to return to whenever they pleased, all without ever having to truly drop their anchor and commit. Your energy was the stable, predictable constant in their emotionally chaotic world. It was the sun they knew would always rise, so they never had to learn how to build their own fire. They could orbit your light, dipping into its warmth when it suited them, and retreating into the cold, familiar comfort of their emotional solitude when they felt overwhelmed. This dynamic, as dysfunctional as it was, created a perverse equilibrium. They had all the power to engage and the power to withdraw, with you perpetually waiting in the wings, ready to welcome them back. But what happens when that sun suddenly vanishes? What happens when the background noise of your devotion is replaced by a silence so profound, so absolute that it becomes deafening? This is the moment of the void. This is the trigger for a primal, gut-wrenching panic that they are entirely unprepared to handle. It's not necessarily the panic of losing you as a person. Initially, it's the panic of losing the certainty of you. It's the terror of that emotional safety net being ripped away. For the first time, they are left completely alone with themselves. There is no one to text for a quick hit of validation. There is no one to blame for their feelings of restlessness or dissatisfaction. There is no external source to regulate their internal emotional state. This void is terrifying because it is a vacuum, and nature abhors a vacuum. This initial panic is not a calculated intellectual response. It is a limbic, fear-based reaction from the deepest, most wounded parts of their psyche. The avoidant attachment style is often forged in childhood through inconsistent parenting or emotional neglect, teaching them that dependence is dangerous and that their needs will not be met reliably. So, they learn to suppress their needs and maintain strict control over intimacy. Your chasing allowed them to maintain this childhood fantasy of control. Your withdrawal shatters it. Suddenly, the script they've been following their entire life is obsolete. The strategies that have always worked, withdrawal, hot and cold behavior, creating distance here, now met with nothing. Silence. And in that silence, their own suppressed need for connection, the very need they have spent a lifetime running from, begins to surface. It bubbles up from the depths, and it is terrifying. They are forced to feel what they have been expertly avoiding: loneliness, not the manageable solitude they cultivate, but a deep, aching, profound loneliness that comes from realizing the person who reflected their worth back to them is gone. This panic is the first and most critical step in the entire process. It is the catalyst for everything that follows. It is the moment the ground beneath their feet turns to quicksand, and for the first time, they are forced to look inward because there is nowhere else to look. This is not a moment for you to witness with glee. It is a moment to understand with profound clarity. Your withdrawal is not an act of punishment. It is an act of profound self-love that inadvertently forces them onto a path of potential growth they would have otherwise never chosen. You stopping the chase creates the necessary conditions for their awakening. But remember, the journey is theirs to take. Your journey is about walking away and not looking back, secure in the knowledge that your absence has become the most powerful teacher they will ever have. The entire avoidant worldview is constructed upon a foundational yet fragile pillar, the illusion of control. They believe, on a subconscious level, that by regulating distance, they can regulate emotional risk. They hold the reins. They decide when to get close, when to pull away, when to offer a crumb of affection, when to build a fortress. This illusion makes them feel safe. It makes them feel powerful in a dynamic where true intimacy would make them feel terrified. Vulnerable. Your relentless chasing was the unwitting fuel for this illusion. Your predictable responses, your sadness at their distance, your joy at their proximity, your attempts to negotiate for more closeness were all data points that confirmed their hypothesis. I am in control of this relationship. I dictate the terms. My needs for both space and connection are being met on my schedule. It was a game of emotional chess, where they believed they were always several moves ahead. But what happens when you refuse to play the game? What happens when you simply stand up from the board and walk away? The illusion of control doesn't just crack, it explodes into a million pieces. Suddenly, the strategies that guaranteed their safety are useless. Withdrawing doesn't bring you pleading at their door, it brings silence. Being cold doesn't make you try harder to warm them up, it makes you disappear. The lever they have been pulling their entire life to get a specific response has snapped off in their hand. This is a psychological earthquake. The foundation of their defensive structure crumbles, and they are left exposed. The sense of power they derive from the dynamic was entirely dependent on your participation. When you withdraw your participation, you reveal their power for what it always was, a mirage. It was a power you granted them by staying in the chase. The moment you reclaim your energy, you reclaim that power, and they are left with nothing but the stark realization of their own powerlessness over you. This shattering is a profound and necessary humiliation for the ego. It forces a cognitive dissonance so severe it can be paralyzing. Their internal narrative of "I don't need anyone" is challenged by the visceral, panicked feeling of your absence. Their story of being the self-sufficient, independent one is contradicted by their sudden, desperate desire to know where you went. This is where the devaluation often breaks down. Avoidants often manage their anxiety by devaluing their partners, focusing on small flaws, or inventing reasons why the relationship wouldn't work to justify their distance. But when you are gone, truly gone, that devaluation mechanism fails. It's hard to devalue someone who is no longer seeking your validation. It's hard to focus on their minor imperfections when their major presence in your life has left a gaping hole. The illusion of control was a defense mechanism designed to protect a very fragile core. When it shatters, that fragile core is left naked and exposed to the elements. This is a moment of terrifying opportunity for them. It is the moment they can either retreat further into a more hardened, defensive posture, or they can, for the first time, begin to question the very architecture of their emotional world. For you, the one who walked away, understanding this shattering is crucial. It confirms that your power was never in changing them or winning the game. Your ultimate power was, and always will be, in your ability to choose yourself. By breaking their illusion, you have not been cruel, you have been authentic. And authenticity is the most powerful force on the planet. You have shown them that the universe does not, in fact, revolve around their fears. And in doing so, you have begun to recenter your own universe around your soul. For their entire lives, the avoidant individual has been an expert in externalizing their internal chaos. Their restlessness, their dissatisfaction, their fear was never really their problem. It was always framed as a problem with you, with the relationship, with the pressure of commitment, with their partner's neediness. You became the screen upon which they projected their own unresolved inner conflicts. As long as they could focus on what you were doing wrong, texting too much, Wanting too much time, being too emotional, they never had to look inward. The chase dynamic was the perfect distraction. Your efforts to close the gap gave them something to push against, a reason to feel smothered, a justification for their distance. But when the chase ends, when you vanish from the dynamic, the projection screen goes blank. Suddenly, there is no one to blame. There is no neediness to point to because you are no longer needing them. There is no pressure to complain about because you have released all pressure. The external noise has ceased, and for the first time, they are left in a quiet room with a full-length mirror, and they are forced to look at the only person responsible for their emotional state themselves. This is the mirror of self-confrontation, and it is the most terrifying object in their universe. Staring into it, they can no longer avoid the questions they've spent a lifetime running from. Why am I so afraid of closeness? What is this emptiness I feel inside that no amount of space ever seems to fill? Why do I push away the very people who try to love me? Am I the toxic one? This mirror does not show them a monster. It shows them a wounded child who never learned how to trust, how to be vulnerable, how to receive love without fearing its loss. This is a moment of profound and excruciating clarity. The pain of this self-confrontation is often far greater than any pain they felt in the relationship. This is why they avoided it for so long. It's much easier to be angry at a partner than it is to be sad for the lonely child you once were. It's easier to feel trapped by someone else's demands than it is to feel the grief of your own emotional imprisonment. This mirror forces them to see the cost of their avoidance, the love they've sacrificed, the connections they've broken, the life they could have had if they had been brave enough to stay. For the first time, they may realize that their freedom was not freedom at all. It was a prison of their own making, with walls built from fear and a lock made of pride. This stage is a critical crossroads. It is where real, lasting change can begin to germinate, but only if they have the courage to stay with discomfort and not simply find a new person to project onto. They might dive into self-help, seek therapy, or finally have honest conversations with friends about their patterns. This is their work to do, and it has nothing to do with you. Your role in this was simply to remove yourself as the distraction, thereby giving them the greatest gift they could ever receive. Even if it feels like a curse to them now, the gift of self-awareness. For you, this is a testament to your strength. By refusing to be the scapegoat for their internal struggles any longer, you force them to finally take ownership. You are no longer their excuse. You are now the catalyst for their potential awakening. And whether they choose to look deeply into that mirror or simply turn away, your path remains the same forward, into a life where you will never again volunteer to be someone's distraction from themselves. As the panic sets in and the mirror of self-confrontation becomes too painful to bear, the avoidant individual will often resort to a classic, almost predictable tactic, the Hoover maneuver. Named after the vacuum cleaner brand, this is a sudden, often intense attempt to suck you back into the dynamic. After a period of silence, where you have been steadfast in your focus on yourself, you may receive a message. It might be a simple, seemingly innocent, "Hey, how have you been?" It might be a nostalgic, "I was just thinking about that time we..." It could be a more direct, "I miss you," or even a dramatic, out-of-the-blue declaration of love and realization. This is the moment that tests every ounce of your resolve. Your mind will race, your heart will leap, that little voice of hope will scream, "It worked! They've changed. They finally see my worth." You must silence that voice. You must understand the raw, primal mechanics of what is truly happening here. The Hoover is not a genuine epiphany of love. It is not a well-reasoned, heartfelt change of character. It is a panic-driven, instinctual attempt to restore the old equilibrium. It is an emotional system reset. They are not reaching out because they have done the deep, painful work of healing their attachment style. They are reaching out because the void you left is so uncomfortable, so terrifying, that they are trying to plug it with the only thing that has ever worked before your attention. They are trying to pull you back onto the projection screen so they can stop looking in the mirror. They are trying to regain the illusion of control by seeing if you will still respond. It is a test. If you take the bait, if you respond with open arms and renewed hope, you will have taught them the most dangerous lesson of all, that you can be dismissed and reacquired at their convenience. The dynamic will reset, but this time it will be worse. They will now know on a subconscious level that even your walking away was not permanent, that their power over you is even greater than they thought. This will deepen their avoidance, because on some level, they will lose respect for you for not respecting yourself. Therefore, your response to the Hoover is the single most important decision you will make in this entire process. You must not respond from emotion. You must respond from a place of unwavering self-value. A simple, polite, and emotionally neutral response like, "I hope you're well," or no response at all, speaks volumes more than any heartfelt paragraph ever could. It communicates one powerful, unassailable truth: I am no longer available for this dynamic. Your silence or your polite indifference is a force more powerful than their pull. It finalizes the new reality. It confirms that the old game is over, permanently. Handling the Hoover correctly is where you claim your victory. It is where you transition from someone who hopes to be valued to someone who knows their own value. It is the moment you stop being a participant in their drama and become the author of your own destiny. See the Hoover for what it is: not a second chance, but a final test. Pass this test, and you graduate to a level of self-mastery that they can no longer touch. While the avoidant person is cycling through panic, shattered illusions, and painful self-confrontation, a miraculous transformation is occurring within you. The energy you once poured into the bottomless well of their potential is now being redirected inward. This is not a passive process. It is an active, deliberate, and powerful metamorphosis. You are no longer the pursuer. You are becoming the prize. This shift begins with a single, profound decision: the decision to make yourself your number one priority. In the past, your mental real estate was dominated by them. Your thoughts were consumed with analyzing their texts, your emotions were tied to their moods, and your schedule was kept open for their potential availability. You were an emotional satellite orbiting their planet. Now, you have become the center of your own solar system. The energy you recover is staggering. That mental space is now filled with your own goals, your passions, your friendships, and your growth. You start going to the gym not to look good for them, but to feel strong for you. You dive into your work or a hobby not as a distraction, but as a source of genuine fulfillment. You reconnect with friends you neglected, not to complain about them, but to laugh and live fully. You begin to invest in yourself with the same fervor you once invested in the relationship. This is not about getting busy to get over someone. This is about a fundamental rewiring of your identity. You are building a life so rich, so compelling, and so complete on your own that the presence of a partner becomes a welcome addition, not a necessary completion. You are moving from a state of lackey need you to feel whole to a state of abundance. I am already whole, and I invite you to share in my wholeness. This internal shift radiates outward. It changes your posture, your eye contact, the tone of your voice. It creates what can only be described as an energetic force field of self-respect. People sense it. Ion of being pursued is now placed in the unfamiliar and uncomfortable role of the pursuer, or at least the admirer from afar. This is where you might see more persistent hoovering attempts, not just panicked ones, but genuine, confused attempts to understand the new you. They might offer the very things you asked for before: consistency, communication, vulnerability. Now it feels different. It feels reactive, not proactive. It feels like it's coming from a place of fear of loss, not a genuine intrinsic desire for connection. And this is why it is often too little, too late. You can feel the difference in the energy. The old dynamic was you begging for love from someone who was withholding. The new dynamic is them offering love to someone who no longer needs it to survive. You have moved from a state of desperation to a state of inspiration. This reversal is permanent, but only if you maintain your center. The moment you slip back into old patterns of anxiety and neediness, the gravity will shift back. But if you stand firm in your new identity, this new balance of power becomes the permanent reality. You are no longer trying to win them, you have won yourself. And in winning yourself, you have become the ultimate prize. This is the final glorious stage of your liberation. It is not about them anymore. It has transcended the entire dynamic. This is the moment you stop being a reactive character in someone else's story and become the sovereign ruler of your own life. Claiming your throne means that your sense of self, your worth, your validation, and your peace are generated entirely from within. You are no longer a democracy seeking votes of confidence from others. You are a benevolent monarchy governed by your own constitution of self-respect, integrity, and love. The opinions, actions, and choices of an avoidant ex or anyone else no longer have the power to dethrone you. You realize that the entire painful journey was not about them at all. It was a brutal but necessary curriculum designed by life to force you to claim this sovereignty. The avoidant person was merely the catalyst, the mirror that reflected back to you where you were abandoning yourself. They showed you where you were giving your power away, where you were settling for less than you deserved, where you were confusing obsession with love and anxiety with passion. In their inability to love you healthily, they taught you how to love yourself fiercely. Sitting on your throne, you view the past not with bitterness, but with a profound sense of gratitude. You are grateful for the lesson, not the pain. You are grateful for the strength you discovered, not the weakness you exposed. You see the avoidant individual not as a villain, but as a wounded soul who was, ironically, a perfect teacher for you on your path to wholeness. You release them with compassion, not because what they did was okay, but because holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting them to die. Your forgiveness is not for them, it is for you. It is the final act of cutting the cord and declaring your emotional independence. From this sovereign place, you make new choices. You set unwavering boundaries. You communicate your needs clearly and calmly. And if they are not met, you walk away with peace, not drama. You attract a different caliber of people into your life, people who are emotionally available, consistent, and who see your worth without you having to prove it. You enter into relationships as a whole person, seeking another whole person to share your wholeness with, not as a half person seeking your missing piece. The chase is over forever because you are no longer running after love. You are embodying it. And in that embodiment, you become a magnet for the deep, secure, and passionate love you were always meant to have. The story is no longer when an avoidant realizes you're no longer chasing. The story is now when a sovereign soul realizes they were the answer all along. What you have just walked through is more than a strategy. It is a spiritual awakening packaged in the painful container of a fractured relationship. This journey from desperate chaser to sovereign ruler is the ultimate transformation, proving that our greatest heartbreaks often contain the seeds of our most powerful rebirths. The dynamic with an avoidant partner is a brutal classroom, but the lessons it teaches about self-worth, personal power, and the non-negotiable necessity of making yourself a priority are the very lessons that will serve you in every area of your life forever. This process works not because it is a manipulative trick to win someone back, but because it is the unvarnished truth of human psychology and energy. When you stop chasing, you are not playing a game, you are aligning with the fundamental law of respect. You are demonstrating to yourself and to the world that your love is a treasure, not a trifle. The chaotic sequence of events that follows the panic, the shattered illusions, the painful self-confrontation is not something you do to them. It is the inevitable consequence of you choosing yourself, a consequence that forces them to face the reality they have been evading. Remember, their journey is theirs, and your journey is yours. Your liberation is not dependent on their reaction, whether they have a life-changing epiphany or simply find a new person to project onto is irrelevant. Your victory was secured the moment you decided that your peace was more important than their presence, that your sanity was more valuable than the fantasy of what could be. You broke the chain not only in your dynamic with them, but potentially for generations to come by refusing to pass on the patterns of anxious attachment and self-abandonment. The most profound outcome of all this is that you will never again fear walking away from a situation that does not honor you. You have been through the fire and emerged not burned, but tempered. You now possess an internal compass that points unerringly toward respect and away from dysfunction. The anxiety that once ruled you has been replaced by a deep, abiding sense of self-trust. You know that, no matter what happens, you have yourself, and that is enough. So let them go. Not with anger, but with the quiet confidence of a monarch who knows their kingdom is secure. Wish them well on their path, and turn your eyes forward to the horizon of your own magnificent future. You are no longer defined by who you lost. You are defined by who you found in the process, your true, powerful, and utterly sovereign self. The chase is over. The healing is complete. Your new life begins now. Step into it with your head high and your heart open, ready to receive the love that you have always deserved, the love that you have now become. Thank you for having the courage to read these words, for having the strength to confront this pain, and for having the faith in yourself to begin this transformation. Your journey to wholeness is the most important journey you will ever take. Go forth and claim the life, the love, and the peace that is your birthright. I believe in you. Now, go and believe in yourself. Goodbye, and God bless.